No, we don't.
That's our new intro song. Naoto and I just made it up.
I thought we have that the Sharp Knives Rock intro.
Oh yeah. It's a snappy intro.
Yeah, we don't.
That was for Kevin. He would love
This isn't Sharp Knives Rock.
Welcome to Japanese Knife 101.
Today's edition is the Small Makers Month.
Coming to you live from the Knifewear studio.
Yeah.
We're talking about the upcoming Small Makers Month, which when does that start? Start today.
Yesterday.
Started yesterday. Yesterday. It's already started. We're late. You're on time.
Yeah. Small Makers Month is basically we try to shed the light on those makers who can only, they are just sometimes solo game, for those of who probably saw a Wakui-san's videos released yesterday. The Wakui-san basically a solo game, like Suzuki-san solo game. They can't produce as many as we would like to see, full time.
Well, yeah, we like to bring in knives that we can have for people to buy every time they come to the store. But when we're living in this world where we've got these individual craftsmen making stuff, that's not always possible. So instead of just like trying to apologize and saying we run out of their stuff, no, we're featuring them. We're focusing on them because they're really quite exceptional and quite unique, some of them. So we're trying to put them on a spotlight, not just have their stuff float in and float out, but actually show off the great things about them.
Exactly. Like sometimes like those small maker months type of stuff comes in to the stores and doesn't get as much attention.
Yeah.
It's cool knives, but it doesn't get as much attention as the other knife makers who have their knives in the full time, right? So we like to kind of, talk about them. Some of the knife makers we actually are showing today. We, Mike and I, went to Japan and saw them in person in April, right? So we can talk a little bit about those people more.
Yeah, last time I saw these Mutsumi Hinora knives, they were actually sitting in a bucket on a floor in Niigata. So yeah, like super cool to see them come all the way out here now. Yeah.
So yeah, foods first. We have.
Well, let's talk about Wakui, because Wakui was really cool. I thought it was really neat. We're driving. It was like we went to see him after lunch, I think, and we're driving through his really cool, really tight old neighborhood, like a place where people live. Neighborhood, not an industrial neighborhood, and we park on the side of the road. I think Naoto looked at me like, "Hey, can he park his car here?"
Yeah, exactly.
And we just walked over, and sure enough, built onto the side of this house in this residential area was this awesome forge, and it was like a little cave. It was super dark, filled with decades and decades of work and stuff and tools, and that's where we got to meet Wakui-san.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I wrote the blog about it. Like sometimes like the numbers can be a little bit more shady. He is third or fourth generation blacksmith, a blacksmith from his family. In fact, his family is his company's name is called Wakui Bar Manufacturing. Guess what?
Bars.
Bar, the pry bars or crowbars. Handmade pry bars or crowbars.
Yeah.
But the probably 30, 40 years ago, what he was saying is a method of construction industry changed or something along the line, and there aren't as much demand for the handmade crowbars, right? So he had to think about his future, where to bring his company to the next step. So he was talking to different knife makers or the blade makers as well, because the Sanjo is really a famous place for a metal work, right?
All kinds of steel
all
stuff.
All kind of metal, right? The only knives because he is more closer. He's working a little closer to the construction, right? The crowbars. He looked at some of the people like planes, chisels. So-called wakugi, which is those handmade nails that made actually the Sanjo pretty famous. And he looked at those options and was talking to those people in the same industry. And Kazomi-san from Yoshikane was nice enough to offer him, hey, if you're thinking of changing your career and stuff, why don't you come to work with us and learn how to do a little bit of stuff like, knife making. that's how he started it. So he still was working at his workshop making crowbars and pry-bars full time. Then at night he went to the Yoshikane to learn how to make kitchen knives.
So he's fourth generation blacksmithing from a family that really started out and built their business on making crowbars and pry bars for the construction industry. But that faded, the demand faded. So he went to Yoshikane to learn how to make kitchen knives. Well, here we are.
So the really the way in which he makes the
this feels so good. Yeah.
His knives are very similar to it's Yoshikane's. It's got really nice taper. It's got really thick spine at the handle. Tapers it down very nicely. Maybe a little bit hard to see on the camera.
Hard to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are really lovely. Great. They feel so good. I'll see if I can get that to focus.
And it's got that sharpening job. He's done such great. It's got really nice, taper from the spine to the edge.
Yeah, there's whenever I'm picking up a knife now, there's a few things I do. I pick it up, I hold it where I'm going to cut with it. So I'm going to pinch grip because that's how I hold a knife. So I try to get the general balance here. But now I also kind of give it a forwards and backwards and then look at the profile of the knife. Look at the thinness and the equalness of the grind, right? Look at the taper of the blade from the back towards the tip, right? And something else I like to do is pinch just behind the edge of the knife and pull my fingers back up. And that gives you an idea of the geometry of the knife sort of if you're to look at it like a cross section. So I can feel that there's a bit of a high point here along the top of the bevel where he's done the grinding to form the edge. And that always feels nice. Because when it gets narrower up on the face of the blade, right, there's less resistance as you're cutting. And what do you see? What do you think? Naoto's an absolute expert when it comes to assessing a knife by eye, and it's really cool.
It's great. It's really thin behind the edge. It's got as Mike was saying, it's got a little bit of high point here and slight low here. So he forges up along the bevel part so that it helps to release the foot a little bit nicer. Also gives you a little bit more strength. And makes it easier to sharpen.
So like that ridge that we're talking about there, that you said strength, like that provides a bit more sort of bending reinforcement so it doesn't bend laterally.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. Things you learn.
Well, while you guys are talking, I'm probably muted here. While you guys are talking about him and his knives, I'm just going to play a little clip of his workshop from when we visited, as well as some kind of close-ups of his knives, so people can hopefully see what you're talking about.
Oh, this was a fun little walk. Yeah. We took a little walk after lunch before we went over to his place, and just beautiful scenery in this country. This was about 2 days before all of these trees that are about to come into view here burst into beautiful pink cherry blossoms.
So his workshop was really, again, as Michael said, it's very interesting, right? Because it's like in the middle of the residential area. And yeah, like it was so surprising where we actually find his workshop. Great, really fun thing about his workshop is that everything is crammed in, and it's not as the most efficient way possible, right? Because he and his father was making making a crowbars before. He didn't have a lot of equipment. He really needed to prepare himself with a lot of equipment, machinery, to make a kitchen knives. So he was like shifting this one thing along and putting this thing here.
When you have a small amount of space, you set it all up to do one job, and then you got to show up later and dump some big machines in so you can do a different job. I can imagine the workflow of the space is really hard to manage.
It was terrible. Like his the forge, the Kirin or the forge, where he heats up the steel. It's in an L shape, right? And he had to.
It was really different.
He had to come out from the little hole where he stand for the spring hammer to do the job.
Yeah, whereas most people, they've got the forge here and the hammer here, and they just move back and forth, right? You have to get up and go and move back and forth. Like a lot of extra work. But I mean, how do you even move something like that, like moving the forge, moving the spring hammer, and he's in such a tight little space because they're in a tiny little community, so space is absolutely at a premium, right?
The like in Sanjo, Hinora-san's a little bit exception because he did have his house is right next to the his workshop, right? But if you look at some like Masashi-san or Mazaki-san or some other knife makers, like who do we? Well, we saw like
some of them moved to a more industrial space.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They built this. The city of Sanjo prepared this area, and all of them have the. It's very interesting. All of them have the address with the rice field in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where, for example, where the Masashi-san is, it is a Kaneko Shinden, the new rice field. So they basically was a rice field.
Right.
Yeah.
Rice is a very big deal in that area.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits of rice being a big deal, sake is a big deal. You've heard us say that before. Okay, I think we should move on. But before we do, give us a quick stats rundown. Steel, cladding, materials.
Right.
What's the lowdown? What are the sizes and shapes we've got? Where do we find them?
So, Wakui-san's knives, 210 or the steel, the white number 2 carbon steel, stainless cladding on the outside, so it makes it a little bit easy to take care of and maintain. The only part that can rust is just a shiny part along the edge. You see the really nice shiny part right here. So keep it dry. That 210 millimeter Gyuto, Nakiri, Santoku, and Petty.
Like 135 petty?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, 135 petty and Santoku are available 4 shapes. We kind of limit to 4 shapes that that he can focus on that making it the small mount.
And they're available both in the stores and online.
Yes. So his knives are great. It's got a beautiful look to it, as well as the nice balance in between the sharpness, durability, and usability. I guess like sharpening. And
I like white carbon steel. It gets blazing sharp. It's so much fun to sharpen. I find it so simple to get a blazingly sharp edge on it. So,
Spoon Monkey was wondering what other steels he works with. Notice a lot of bits of steel, like a lot of ingots and stuff in that video that we played.
So he is he's trying to up his game these days. He actually has been trying to make his own samai with the carbon.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
So like carbon steel on the outside, white carbon, the blue carbon, and the core. Again, the stainless steel cladding is not something that he can do yet. So I think for like stainless clad carbon steel knives is really, really good introductory knives of his. But he is trying to make something a little bit more funky and fancy. So I've seen his some other knives with the white carbon steel with forge welder in-house, whatchamacallit?
Damascus?
Some Damascus as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see something like that. And
did he have any Tsuchimi?
He can, yeah.
He can? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, but because he is a solo game, his father was a the crowbar maker, and all he could help for these knives is to put the handle on or just make sure that the blade is straight. He knows how to use the hammer, but it's not the same kind of work as the crowbar making, right? So that's kind of things.
Kim Wayne was asking what the height of the blade is on the Nakiri. Now, these stats are all on our website, but we'll measure it for you right here.
And it varies too, right?
Yeah, they're handmade, so they're going to be...
That's like bang on 2 inches or 51 millimeters.
At the heel, it's a little bit more, probably higher. No, it's pretty similar. 51, 52.
Yeah, it's like a half a millimeter taller at the heel. And yeah, it's about 48. So there's a little bit of taper up towards the tip, just like a really slight belly to it.
Right on. Spoon Monkey had an interesting question. Just wondering if for each of the kind of makers we're talking about today and their knives, if there's any other knives or makers you could kind of compare to as far as maybe knife geometry or forging techniques, just to give her, because these are all new makers, to have a reference point for
Good idea.
folks that are familiar.
Yeah. So the Wakui-san, as we mentioned, he apprenticed under Kazumi-san at the Yoshikane. So it definitely has very similar feel to Yoshikane. Early Masashi-san's knives, early. His knives.
Holy, how they ever progressed.
It progressed quite a bit. So very early Masashi-san's knives is very similar kind of feel to it.
The one thing I would say about them, and something in general I noticed from that region, is they're not always light. There's some knives that are like Takefu, for example. I always find their knives are aiming to be lighter and lighter. These are not incredibly light as far as a Japanese kitchen knife goes. I don't know if that's necessarily the thickness or the material, but
I think general the origin as well. For example, the Hinora-san, which who we are going to talk next, I guess, or no, actually later. Next, Hinora-san was he's a Mutsumi-san, but the Hinora-san's father, Tsukasa Hinora, he was not started as a kitchen knife guy, right? He started out as a hatchet.
Oh, right.
Guy,
yeah.
Who makes the much thicker blade than the kitchen knives. So for the so as a demo,
it makes sense.
stuff.
If you come from making a hatchet or a crowbar, these are pretty light in comparison. Yeah.
So it's for hatchet. It's really important to forge the shape into the blade rather than the lot of sickle maker like. The Takefu has the sickle background, so they make it much thinner. So it's slight difference there. That's why you notice the when you play the video from Hinora-san, you see the hammer is like bigger.
Yeah.
One of each shots are so much stronger, right? Bang. Bang. Where the Takefu is like
totally
right. So
that totally makes so much sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of difference there. So, if there is not much more question about Wakui-san,
let's talk about.
We got one more sort of question. Joe just said people that carry an everyday carry tool or have like a set of things with them at all times often carry a small pocket pry bar, which I didn't know. Apparently, they're really slick, cool, neat, groovy, and dandy. Wow. But just said that Wakui-san can make a killing off pocket pry bars. Now he does make some pry bars, and we've been kind of debating back and forth whether we should get some in for maybe the garage sale. What sizes does he make? Like a teeny tiny one?
I think Joe's probably talking about something like the Gerber Shard. I've got one of those things. It's a super handy little thing to have in your pocket, right? Because you're often trying to use your keys like a pry bar, or sometimes your knife. You don't actually need a knife. You just need something sharp enough to break tape.
I have at least one pocket knife with no tip because of that.
Oh yeah, no, those are pretty smart. It'd be interesting. So, where you had said something about maybe getting some pry bars. Yeah,
pocket ones actually comes really. That could be generally speaking though his pry bars, crowbars are used in this professional construction or deconstruction industry, right? To break things really big
24, 36, 18 kind of
like a wrecking bar sort of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So but it's actually a very interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's more interested in those more regular ones, let us know. Okay. Mutsumi Hinora-san.
Yeah. So Mutsumi Hinora-san.
I think this knife in particular is really fantastic.
Really
Look at that thing.
Stop. Nope.
Put your hand in front of your face, Mike. That might work. Yeah. There we go.
There you go. Well,
all right. This is a 135 mil petty, but it's nice and tall. It's like a little chef's knife. I think this knife would be amazingly handy in your kitchen. But of course, we've got Nikiri Santoku 210 and 240 mil Gyuto. Yeah. Look at that.
Mutsumi Hinora-san is the son of legend, the Tsukasa Hinora-san, right? The Tsukasa Hinora-san, as some of you already know, he's a great blacksmith. He is very vocal of what he does. he's got a lot of like awards and stuff like that as well. When it comes to kitchen knife making, also he makes his own so-called kitaeji, right? Like folds the steel over and over to make that little really beautiful river jump or unryu, or those like patterns on the blade. His son, he started work for him or in the same under the same roof after. Well, I think he graduated from this specialty kind of high school / college type of thing, and he was working at the other knife making places, more mass produced knife making places. Then he went to the knife show and saw his dad's work, and he was fascinated, right, about like how beautiful his father's works are, and thought it's really, really important to keep that tradition going and pass it down in generations. So now he produces and forges all the knives under this brand called Ajikataya. Hinora-san's place, they have two different branding. Ajikataya as more of the not a mass produced. They are all forged, all hand forged, hand sharpened, and everything. But this one here, the forged welding is sometimes in house. Or the other one, the Tsukasa Saku, or the made by Tsukasa, is all done by him.
Right.
And all the forge welds and stuff like that were done by him. That's pretty much the only difference now. All Ajikataya knives are forged and sharpened by the Mutsumi-san, also known in that area as Muchan, with the like little nickname.
What does that mean? How would you break that down?
It's just Mutsumi Mu.
Yeah.
And Chan as what's that, boy? Yeah.
Chan's like how you often refer to a kid, right?
Yeah. So
it's like an endearing term, like term of affection for
Mike Chan.
Mike Chan. Now Chan.
Now Chan.
Now Chan.
Exactly. So something like that, right?
That should be your channel for Japanese Knife 101. Now Chan.
Now Chan's not Nerd Hour. But
your knife conspiracy theory website.
But his knife is the
quick. It's trying to cover your face.
It's trying to focus on your hand behind the knife. It doesn't work that way. There we go. Nice try, Mike.
His knives, really big difference between, say, compared to the Wakui-san's knives, a little bit more thicker, and doesn't expose as much steel as Wakui-san either. So you see that core steel, it's only millimeter or two is exposed, and really evenly, hey? Like there's no one like part that is overexposed to anything like that. It's really, really well done.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more thicker spine here. It's the weight. If you actually compare these two tens, you may find it
it's so thin. But the angle that creates the bevel is much steeper, right? Like so it's thicker here along the ridge, and then tapers down quite severely, and it's so thin at the edge. It's crazy. Yeah. But he's got some really nice features. Like I really like when you have this bit right here, just where you're going to hold the knife, flares out. It makes the knife feel really comfortable as you hold it. And it looks very, very clean and smooth, but up close, you can see and feel the individual hammer strikes, giving it some fine texture. And I suspect as this Kurochi ages, as you're using it, some lines will start to show up. Like the appearance of this knife will change over time as you use it, and I kind of like that. I like this look of a knife. I like it. It's real simple and clean.
This one even has a little bit of hammer marks. Like right.
Oh yeah. You can kind of get them there.
Right there.
Nice. His Nakiri is really nice too. It's got that really sweet angular tip here, which I think I like that on Nakiri. Functionally, I don't think it does anything aesthetically, I think it just gives it some cool attitude.
Mm.
Like it gives you a bit of mass up at the tip, right? That's the whole point of an Akiri to me, is that you've got this much more steel up at the front. So when you're doing that backwards sort of chopping motion, I feel like you just got more steel to throw around.
Can I actually hold it? I do have.
Oh yeah,
his,
please, yeah.
I do have his Nakiri at home. Got it for quite a while ago. Now it's got a lot more like his father's style. It's got a lot more thicker part where it meets the handle. It's got a nice taper down here.
Honestly, I like that he's getting the steel forge welded.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect he's still progressing through his skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably focusing on the part that he's good at and improving. And I suspect in the background, he's probably learning to forge weld steel himself. And
absolutely, yeah.
And once it's up to a level of standard, then he'll do it.
Yeah.
But for the time being, what he's purchasing is probably done by someone who specifically just forge weld steel. And it's probably way better than what he can accomplish, right?
Well, he still forge welds all his single bevels and hatchets.
Yeah.
So he can do that. But
Nice.
the double bevels and stuff like that are a little bit more difficult. So that's why.
What's the wood on the handle? It's really cool. It's very beautiful.
I believe this is olive wood.
Olive wood.
Yeah.
That's a really great wood
With a
for
water
kitchen
buffalo
stuff.
horn. It's got a really beautiful grain to it.
Yeah, there's really nice texture and grain. And of course, as you hold it, it's going to become darker and more golden with the oils from your hands.
Why do you say makes a good kitchen knife handle? Like, why is it good for kitchen stuff?
Like olive wood stuff seems to be pretty resistant to water in kitchens, right? And I don't know if it's because of the oil content of the wood. Perhaps one of our viewers is sitting there Googling it for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, I've got a little like charcuterie board that I use that's made out of olive wood.
Right.
And that thing takes a kicking, man. Like it's really seems to be really durable material.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, you guys went to see Mutsumi-san back in April, and we shot a little bit of video in his workshop. Both him and his father working.
Yeah, it was one of the first time. Like I've been there, we've been there a few times.
Yeah, I've been there once
but
before.
It was first time actually seeing both father, the Tsukasa-san, and the Mutsumi-san at the together.
Yeah,
work like in a forge. So this was shot after we shot the Tsukasa-san's footage, and basically he jumped in and I'll show you how to do this, and it was very, very nice.
He's got a lot of skills. Just the way he moves things around and his control over stuff. He's very skilled for sure. He's a pretty cool guy too, right? But
he's actually involved in a lot of community involvement as well, right?
Yeah.
They have the festival called Koba Fest, which opens up their factories and workshops for the regular, like general public to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And one year he actually he was in charge of whole festival once.
That's the one thing about the whole Tsubame Sanjo area is they're like a really great community of steel manufacturing, people who manufacture products out of steel, I should say. And Koba Fest is really cool. If you're ever going to visit Japan and you're into steel, I'd see if Koba Fest was going to be on when you were there, because it's like an open factory time. You can go check all sorts of stuff out. But watching him work was great. The whole factory is really quite awesome. And it's amazing. The size of that hammer is so much bigger, and makes so much more sense now that you say that they really started making big, heavy things. Big, heavy hammer, right?
Yeah. So it's got a really lot more like power to it. Like one of each hits are much more harder. It is great for the hatchet and also the something like single bevel knives as well, like debats.
The thicker blade.
Yeah, thicker blade. But those people are so talented that they can do both things, right?
Well, one thing I noticed that was worth talking about is watching him use that big hammer. And you watch all of these guys. I've tried using these power hammers, and they're like riding a wild horse, man. The way to control them is so gentle, and when you watch how accurate they are with those hammers, like that's got to take them a lot of time just to master using that machine. And it's really quite impressive to watch him use it.
Awesome. I noticed in that video it looks like his hair is gray. So he's not young. Like he's younger than his father, obviously, but he's not like young.
It might be real gray. It might be dyed gray. Who knows?
Yeah, he's young. He's younger than Masashi.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, he's like in his 30s.
He's probably like same age. No, it's probably your age. Like
30s.
30. No. Are you 30s?
I don't know. I stopped counting.
All right. He's like probably like late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same age.
Yeah.
Yeah, late 30s,
Like
early
in
40s.
our age.
Same generation.
Yeah. It's like our age group.
Yeah, we grew up listening to the same music.
Yeah. So like you got a grade,
I got a lot. Yeah. Where I have it.
Yeah. So.
So we had a few questions about Wakui and a few about Mutsumi.
Okay, let's get them out here. Let's talk about.
Yeah. So Kim has another one. Says, I'm really enjoying my Masashi Koku and Bunka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a sweet knife. Love the tall blade height and flatter profile. Is it a Yoshikane / Sanjo region thing? How do Wakui and these newer lines compare to Masashi's work?
So the really the biggest thing that these say Muchan or Wakui-san's knives are more I would probably say a traditional Sanjo style. It's got a lot thicker, meatier spine, but the taper is a little gradual. What Masashi-san did for especially the Kokuen line is that he used a very similar forging technique. It's got nice thickness, but he did a lot more taper down. Like look at how thin the tip of the Kokuen, how he forged, right?
It's very different.
It's different, and how he sharpened too. The bevel, say for example, if you compare it to Muchan's to Kokuen bevel is a little bit higher. Right, that means it's not thinner and
it's a more gradual taper, right?
Than this little. So this is a little bit stronger for sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to the
The Koguns are crazy thin. Like they're insane.
So thinner knives will generally cut better, but this will give you a little bit. Like I won't worry too much about cutting into something that's.
So I guess the answer is yes, these are similar to a lot of the style from the Sanjo region, but they're not necessarily similar to Masashi style because he, while is very good at the Sanjo style, is also progressing down his own road. And those new knives like the Koku and Bunka and his Nakiris you would see now are a step beyond that regional sort of typical
like
style.
These are very typical Sanjo style. So it's got.
Yeah, the Nakiris are always a little bit beefier.
Yeah.
And like you're talking about with that general like longer taper that's on them, I've always found like the Sugimori, for example, when it's a really thick, kind of heftier feeling Nakiri. It's got this really tall bevel. So if you're cutting something like a red pepper, when it's a little thinner, that knife's so thin behind the edge, it's like using a laser beam. But when you come into something bigger like a squash, that long taper, I don't know how to describe it. When you're cutting something dense like a squash, it just slides right through it. And I think it's because that taper just gradually splits the flesh apart. And then it gets to a wider section that it rides through. And it's not splitting it like an axe and giving you that cracked surface. It's giving you a smooth slice surface, but it just drifts through with the weight of the knife. It's really amazing.
The little bit longer taper. Yeah, the edge like that. I was cutting let's stop talking about Masashi-san, but I'm just gonna say it again. I have the Kokuen Gyuto at home. I was cutting the butternut squash with that one. It was just amazing.
Where'd you get the Kokuen Gyuto?
Like,
how many new knives have you got this year?
I have them for very long. That one I have them for like 5-6 years now. I only sharpened them once because I tipped the very tip of it by washing it. But I fixed it. Now it's like working like a crazy. And
that's the same answer he tells his wife. Oh, I've had it for years.
there are a few knives like that. I can't really.
Mike, if you were married, you'd understand.
Oh, I was married. I do understand.
Well, Jason said, just ordered the Wakui Gyuto 240. Couldn't resist. You guys talked him into it.
Nice work.
Nice work.
It's like cool
we have
knife.
240 too. So 5 shapes? Yeah. 240.
Oh, it's great. You're gonna love that knife. You're gonna be able to power through all kinds of stuff with that knife. It looks so great. So congratulations.
Congrats.
Thanks for buying it. We're always happy when people buy stuff because we talked about it.
Is that we may not have the Santoku. I couldn't remember. I think we only have the four shapes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, did we roll? We saw videos. What do we got next?
Well, I
Sukaka?
got a couple more questions,
Sukasa
and then
Suzuki?
we'll roll into Suzuki-san.
Yeah.
Spoon Monkey was wondering how they get that perfect gray kasumi on. I think referring to Mutsumi-san's knives.
Yeah, the a lot of those guys here in the this area, they use the yep. So he polishes the edge quite nice, then the sandblast them.
Right. So hand
can
polish and then sandblast.
Yeah, right here, it's got a little blast kind of went into a little bit of black part right here as well. Where the say his Tsukasa Saku, the made by Tsukasa brand, he only does it by
Yeah. Suzuki-san only does by hand, right?
the Tsukasa Saku. That
Okay,
line,
that line. Yeah, right.
that line. Undu, River Jump, and the one more is all done by like hand polishing.
Mhm.
I don't think his Rainbow Damascus line is done by that. It's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty shiny.
And they don't have the bevel like that.
What-
Prominent bevel.
What's the
So-
closest you could get to that finish by hand if you're sharpening by hand?
Oh, yeah. This is a
Because
great question.
you did do a great video that's on our YouTube channel about
Right.
getting different knife finishes. Would you say that like Kasumi that you did?
This is very similar to what I would probably do. The pretty soft 1000 stone, like the Knifewear 1000, to get the Kiriha really nicely cloudy, and use the something like a little bit hotter 4000 stone or 6000 stone. Several ways, but to put that on the edge, you could use something like Naniwa Super Stone 3000 to get that nice balance as well. So there are several ways.
You want to get that really nice, perfect, even look, though. You really need to make sure that all of the deep scratches from your previous grit you've removed, right? So it is quite time consuming. But I have a feeling Mr. Spoon Monkey's real into that.
Probably.
Mrs. Spoon Monkey? Mr.? I don't know.
Some guy called Chris Lord said olive wood is super hard and super dense. It makes it more odor and stain resistant compared to a lot of other woods.
We could call it Chris Lord wood.
Okay. We've got Suzuki-san, Tsukasa Suzuki.
That was exciting. That's exciting news about
These are such unique blades. This isn't a blade. This is a die cut.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy that we get to kind of carry his. We had him like about a year now, and again, Small Makers Month is all about talking about the knives that we haven't been able to actually feature. Do we have a blog published? No.
About Suzuki-san? Yeah, it came out yesterday.
It came out.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a blog post about him. Suzuki-san from this prefecture called Yamagata Prefecture.
It doesn't really show it this way.
What's known?
Here, I got a nice video about his knives, so you talk about this.
Oh yeah, your video shows some really good shots of that.
So Yamagata Prefecture is just north of Niigata. The very famous place for a cherries, actually, not the blossoms, the
eating
fruits.
Yeah.
The cherries and some rice. They have shonai heya, that's the flat plain for the rice, and also lots of farming land, right? So what really farming land needs lots of farming equipment, obviously. And this Suzuki-san, it's like when it's done, you see something that it looks like a.
So he makes sickles, is what Naoto's showing you, but not saying, even though you can't see it.
We'll see it in a minute.
Yeah, it looks like the sickle that has.
Oh yeah. The grill.
Like a scythe. Yeah.
Well, you guys will see them probably.
Okay, well let's talk more about the knives and what we can see on the screen here. Okay, they're single bevel.
Yeah.
They're a crazy different type of single bevel. There we go. That's a sickle Naoto's talking about. So farming area, he makes sickles, lots of farming equipment. Yeah. He also makes these crazy unique style of kitchen knives where they've got a single bevel, but it's not nearly as wide of a bevel and it's not nearly as fat of a blade, but they are still Nimai, right? It's two layers of steel forge welded together.
Yeah.
That's why you've got that one big flat surface on the back. That's the hard steel on the back, right?
This here? Yeah. Well, it's Nima. It's all 2-layer steel. He purposely leave this part a little thicker to give strength.
Right. Yep.
But he forges this super thin. See if he can.
Okay,
If you put your hand up next to it, it might. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
it's crazy thin.
It's super thin. And the bevel. So this got little rip or ear type of thickness here, and it forged really thin right here, and almost like Takeda type of grind here.
Almost, yeah. So short.
The back is pretty flat. So what happens is that.
Give me the one. I'm gonna try some.
Yeah, we got some sample.
I got a sample one here, and something I think I've always wanted to try with this knife. I'm very bad at this technique. What's it called again? The rotating?
Yeah, Katsuramuki.
Katsuramuki.
So because it's like big single bevel, it's not necessarily greatest to cut the thick piece of daikon because it kind of has a little bit wedge feel.
You don't have to stare at me while I'm doing it.
Yeah, we can keep talking.
I'm just looking at how good he
Is
I'm terrible at it. Don't look at me. I'm gonna cut my hands
Mike's
off.
rotary peeling ASMR. Just the sound of daikon being cut.
It's something that this kind of a knife allows you to do. That single bevel is this kind of.
But really, what you will find with this particular knife is really the biggest benefit. This is great, but because this ear, the little bit of rip on the spine of the knife, really quick. When you're slicing down a say cucumber,
I'm in the zone. Keep going.
Well, when you're slicing say daikon into like thin slices, this rip will push the food apart. And also because it's got a little bit of concave in there, right? You see that food is falling, right? Yeah, look.
Oh my God, this is like a mandolin.
Keep going, Mike.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep slicing.
Don't stop.
Keep slicing.
I'm putting you on the spot.
See, it falls. The food falls really.
Well, you got to get it straight.
Yeah, here.
I think the interesting thing to point out is that this knife takes some getting used to.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like it's weird to cut with.
Yeah. So it's because it's like really big and single bevel. It needs a little bit of practice because you have the knife wants to cut it into the certain direction. So, as good as the chef he is, he still struggles a little bit because you don't have the usuba or anything, right? But look how it kind of falls. See. Yeah, see, like how it falls.
It peels away from the knife, right?
It peels away, right?
Here, do a bunch of cucumber slices really quick, because that's something that people, I find myself doing at home. I literally did that for
a lot of people are not finely slicing daikon.
Well, maybe not Canadians.
You see a little bit. So you see that the food falls a little bit easier on the one side.
Yeah, normally cucumber like piles up and falls over the other side of the knife.
It's harder, right, to control.
You kind of have to. I always find with this, because the knife wants to pull in a little bit. Although this one doesn't try to pull in too much because it's more flat on the back. I find that if you angle the knife out just a little bit first.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, try it.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun.
So
yeah, you would find yourself making hand-shaved coleslaw in no time with this thing.
So you see it separates like this, right? Right? Do you see?
Yeah, it peels away from the knife.
Peels away like very nicely. Sometimes like it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it peels away So it makes it really easy to cut the things like these without, blade sticking. No, the food sticking on the blade.
I think if you're obsessed with a julienning technique, this is a fantastic knife for you. Oh, look at that. When we were in Japan, we had this one dish. I forget. It was at that sushi place before we went on that walk with Kita.
Yeah.
They had this dish of daikon with this creamy sesame dressing on it. And it was so cool and refreshing. It was kind of a hotter day out.
Right.
It was such a delightful thing to eat.
Now, what sizes do we have from Suzuki-san?
So
we got a few different shapes, and they're all kind of different.
So we have this crazy Nakiri. We have Santoku, and we have this. Did it a little thinner.
Here, I'll pop that video up again just so people can see the three shapes.
That crazy little like.
We have one more shape.
Oh, petty, right? Or Kosantoku?
Yeah, Kosantoku.
Yeah.
But I like this small Nakiri as well. It's got really kind of kick-ass shape to it too, right? The Nakiri, the Ko Nakiri, that's sitting below there. But so there are a few reasons. Again, he makes that shape. His sickle is like that, made like that, right? It's got really thick spine here and very thin edge right here, and the back is flat. It's got a little carve. We actually have this one on sale as well. We are selling this as well for sale as well. Can you guess why they actually paint this part red?
So you know which end to hold.
Yes. No. So they can find it a little bit easier if you drop it in the field.
Oh yeah, like at sunset when you're supposed to be going home and you're finding all your tools.
Yeah, like where, and you don't want to find this, like right.
You don't want to find it with your foot.
Yeah, exactly.
They used to do that with axes too, and they still do sometimes.
It's pretty sharp, so something that you don't want to find it with your foot.
I'll just be over here trying to do this.
Okay, do it paper thin.
I can't. That's it. Just do it paper thin.
Yeah,
no problem.
Thin.
Just do it that way.
But it's really unique, and it's unique in that particular region of Yamagata as well. Actually, some places like next prefecture to the east makes very similar shape, but Suzuki-san does actually really, really nice.
I like it. I think it's really unique. If you want something fun to add to your collection,
and a little bit of tip, not a tip, but this Suzuki-san's knives are actually finished sharpening or touched up by the fellow sickle maker in Niigata.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Something I think about a knife like this, when you change how you cut food, you'll change the food that you make. And if you're a little bit bored of what you're cooking right now, or a little bit bored of what you're making, you're a little bored of your techniques, a knife like this could give you a whole new genre of cutting. And you'll end up making all kinds of different stuff. Like finally julienne a bunch of stuff like this, mixing it with some of those mung bean thread noodles, rolling it up in some spring roll wrap, making yourself little veggie noodle spring rolls. Julienne salad. What else would you do with
creamy sesame daikon salad you just mentioned? I need to make that tonight.
It was awesome. So good. I made the dressing. It was just ground just an absolute ton of sesame seeds. Mirin, rice vinegar, and Kewpie mayo. And I was thinking about trying it again by just using a little bit of tahini paste as well.
Little soy is good.
And finish with a bit of that Rossingen soy. Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, it's just really the balance between the sweetness of sour and lots of a little bit of sesame oil. Yeah. So good. And I actually use the it's not called this tahini, but it's basically the sesame paste, Chinese sesame paste.
Okay, yeah,
I use that sometimes. Yeah,
nice.
It's great. It's pretty simple and pretty easy too, right? So you guys can make it at home pretty easy, and mix that with the daikon radish, cucumber. I cut the carrots very nice and thin like that as well. And So that will
Ginger.
Ginger. I wouldn't actually put the ginger. It's get a little too strong for the salad.
Yeah.
For salad, like But ginger, cut it like this. It's gonna be good. A lot of Japanese traditional cuisines. They peel the ginger as well, and they cut it very, very thin.
Oh, this knife cutting green onions would be insane.
Yeah. So
You mentioned I'm just taking you off script here now. We're going nuts. You mentioned some fancy soy sauce a minute ago. Do you want to tease that a little bit?
We should.
I know you guys are really excited about it.
So when Naoto and I were in Japan, we had a couple days near the end of our trip. We actually got to go back to Naoto's hometown, where there weren't really knife makers, but there are a couple special things there. One, charcoal, the Binchotan. Also, soy sauce. Soy sauce, like the original incarnation of soy sauce in Japan, started in this region, and Naoto has found a guy making soy sauce there. There's a lot of people that make really great soy sauce there. However, there's one who is like the craft brewing of soy sauce. Like this guy was amazing, and his soy sauce is amazing. And we're gonna get some.
We call him it's someone we can refer to as like Musashi-san, the soy sauce maker.
Yeah.
Like everyone else makes great soy sauce, but not many will take it to his level and also try to progress it from there either, right? Like he always tries new method. Like he's actually aging some soy sauce in the ocean right now.
Oh, an ocean?
Ocean, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, there's a lot of great traditions in Japan that if you were to just follow those great traditions, you would inevitably make amazing stuff. And there is mastery in just doing those things perfectly every time. However, there are some people that like to push the boundaries, and we like those folks too.
Yeah. So so we are actually planning on bringing those 4 different kind of soy sauce from that company. Each has its own unique different flavors. 4? Yeah, 4. So 5 maybe.
Yep.
The Kippon smoked, 4 different kinds. But those each has very unique flavors, different type of flavors, and what goes well with what.
A lot of flavor.
Yeah.
They don't taste like, it's not like lime soy sauce or some kind of flavored soy sauce.
Cool
it's
Ranch
like,
soy sauce.
This is Cool Ranch, Inferno soy sauce. It is soy sauce flavored soy sauce, but he's using black soybeans or the different types of soybeans.
Sort of like how miso has different.
Yeah, he's using multiple types of ingredients or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So in some cases we have this one that's a smoked soy sauce, a little eyedropper, but it's just the quantity of flavor, and I think probably the amount of the aminos that are in there. There is a lot more it's like, this is my great analogy. It's like the soy sauce that you get at the table at the restaurant. That's like an old tube TV. Maybe it's color TV, but this is like when you see that like massive UHD TV and all of the crisp colors and the depth and all of that. That's what his soy sauce tastes like.
Yeah, it's just like really pops in your mouth, which it's not something that you may not have, had it before. To me, it was very, even to me, it was amazing. Like we get to actually taste it. Tasting room was closed due to COVID, but he was like snuck some in our hand, like
some soy sauce bumps.
Yeah, it was great. So we're going to have those soy sauce hopefully in a month or 2, so that we can we can talk about it a little bit more.
Stand by, stay tuned. That's what I should say. Stay tuned. We're gonna have a little launch and a little party, and we're gonna do little soy sauce tasting events. It'll be fun. Okay, what's next?
Well, there's no. If anybody has questions about Suzuki-san, they should pop them into chat. Feel free, go for it. Or questions about other knife makers as well.
Yeah.
Kim just followed up to say, thanks for answering my questions. I was thinking of branching out, so maybe I'll go for Masashi's 210 Koku and Kiritsuke, just to add a little variety to the knife set. I think that's
well,
awesome
it'd be
choice.
rude not to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, up next we've got a pretty exciting. We do have some other stuff coming for Small Makers Month, right? But nothing that we have physically here yet.
We have. We
Where,
just got a
where
few
is
more,
the one that we have?
We got a few more. Whatchamacallit, the Yukihiro Sakai-san from Kumamoto. He's also like one of the newer guys started making knives. He was making knives under a Daisuke Nishida-san in Kumamoto as well.
Okay, yeah, right.
And he started his own workshop a couple years ago. So he's kind of one of those knife makers, likes to do own forge welding in house all the time. So in house. So we'll have some actually knives in that.
Cool.
And I think we have the blog coming about the Yukihiro Sakai.
So when do we expect those to be out?
We have a few shapes now, so we can.
They're going to trickle out.
Yeah, trickle out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, Small Makers Month runs for the next 4 weeks, so
Yeah.
we'll have kind of some stuff trickling out all month.
And it doesn't always go away, right? It kind of lasts as long as it lasts, and that's the theme of the whole event. But we just want to be, we want to give, due reverence to these folks, even though they're not making mass quantities. They're making awesome.
We want to just pay enough the attention that they deserve.
Yeah.
Do you want to just remind us a little bit about Small Makers Month, since we got some new folks that have tuned in recently?
Yeah. So we buy loads of knives from Japan, and we like to offer a complete selection of knives that every time you come to the store, one will be available for you, no matter the shape or size. However, we live in a world where we have really limited quantities of stuff. And I'm not talking about this, all this stuff about shipping and all these things that everyone's facing now. We've faced that forever. There's only a couple people working on these knives that we're buying at a time. They have a maximum capacity in which they can produce stuff. And we continually are finding new makers of stuff, new blacksmiths. And we want to bring their products in, but we know that they won't stick around for an entire year. And that's just because they've got a number of customers. They only make so many in a year. Obviously, Wakui-san, he's the one person making all of the stuff. So there's only so much they can do. So Small Makers Month is when we spend a bit of time collecting this product. And then we like to just shine a light on these folks and make sure that we get their stories told, and we get them placed in front of everyone, including our staff, so everyone knows what's going on. And they don't just sort of fall away into the back corner, into obscurity. We want to really show them off for the awesome things they are. So that's what Small Makers Month is about.
Yeah, we just want to shed the light on the people who don't usually get that much attention to.
Well, and this one we can actually call it Young Makers Month too, because we've got this really exciting thing going on. We recently kind of through social media met a young fellow who is working out of Camrose, Alberta. His name is Kenzie Aaron, and he's got a forge that he's calling Aaron Iron and Steel. We've bought a few knives from him. They're shortly going to be arriving. We've got one sample here. There's some really cool things going on here. Look at this knife. It's beautiful. This is a hand forged knife by a guy who literally just turned 17 a couple of weeks ago. He's working out of the garage on his grandparents' farm. He's using steel that's 1084, and he, honest to God, had never really seen a Japanese knife in his life. And he has been making these by hand. He's got a 100-year-old trip hammer, and it's incredible what he's turning out, to be honest with you, from someone who's never really gotten in and learned from anybody. He's learning off the internet. He's learning qualities that people are looking for as far as online and Instagram. And it's super impressive. So we're going to get about a dozen of his knives in. Really fun thing. A couple of weeks ago, we went up to visit him when Masashi was visiting us. So we took Masashi to come and meet him, and they got to do a bit of work together. Masashi was so great. He showed him some tricks. I think Kenzie had his mind blown. He was pretty excited. And the best thing of it all, Masashi has invited him to go and work with him in Japan. So obviously the young guy impressed the master, and I hope that all pans out for him.
The work until Masashi-san came to visit him, he hadn't actually seen a Japanese knife in person, right?
No.
That's right.
He'd only ever really done research on the internet, and yet he's making these incredible Japanese style knives that are pretty rad.
But yeah, it was really, really nice. The Kenzie showed us some. He wanted to show off his skills to Masashi-san, and Masashi-san was giving him. He even Masashi-san showed him how he forges the knife. He he did this like forge welding this steel, and he then Masashi-san took that steel, made it into the knife shape, right?
Yeah.
In front of his eyes.
Yeah. Oh man, Kenzie really put his all into this, and he was trying to impress Masashi-san. I mean, obviously he did, and it was a great day. It was a really hot day outside, and it was absolutely roasting inside of this little shed that he's working in.
It was. I hope that what he's done, what we brought the Masashi-san to him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's certainly not your average teenager. He's an incredibly smart guy. He's incredibly well thought out. There's a Santoku and a Kiri. We're going to get Santoku and a Kiri and a 210 Gyuto made by him. They're going to be in the $300-$400 range. He's actually using a handle that's really neat. It's a roasted maple. That's how you get the colors. The maker of the wood is roasting the wood. It's stabilized. And so Kenzie is actually cutting these and forming these handles by hand.
But it's all about how he forges it. He actually does it such a great job. Not many, like I've seen only a few knives that were produced here in North America, so I can't really speak of the other makers. But what he does is very similar to what the Masashi-san does, which he makes this. He has got a little bit thicker here where it attached to the handle, and he forges the taper in when he's actually hammering it. A lot of people try to attain the taper by grinding it, right? Some knife makers, they buy a bar of steel and they grind and they try to achieve that the shape out of but he forges the blade into the shape, which like when he made this one, he was probably 16. He knows done a few knives. It's incredible. And I was talking to Masashi-san about it, like, look, he's got those like things right, and he's like, so
he's off on a good start. I mean, they're not quite as thin as some of the other things, but I think this young man is absolutely worth supporting.
Yeah. So we're gonna get some of his knives in like a few. He's kind of telling us like early September. He'll be able to send us some. So we'll get 210 Gyuto, Santoku, and a Kiri to start.
So we're pretty excited about that. His knives.
He's got to get them done before he has to go back to grade 12.
Yeah.
He's going into grade 12. But he's turning out amazing knives. But I'm pretty inspired by him, actually.
Yeah, he's such a cool, smart kid too. Like as soon as we started talking to him, I was like, oh yeah, I want to support this guy. He said he quit his job at A&W so that he could focus more on forging knives. So we really want this to work out for him, so he doesn't have to go back to working at A&W. Yeah, no, he's making great stuff, and his family is really nice too. They such great hospitality on their farm there.
And the family supports him 100% too. So it's
I think he comes from a good place. So
yeah, cool. What are your guys' favorites of Small Maker Month? What do you think they'll be adding to your collection?
I really like this Mutsumi Hinora 135 Petty because I really enjoy this short size, but the tall blade. I love this like little Gyuto kind of. Can I call it a Gyuchan?
Gyuchan? Yeah.
Gyuchan?
Gyuchan.
Gyuto-chan. Little Gyuto. Focus. Come on. Anyway, this one is, I think, one of my favorites right now.
My favorite is this Suzuki-san's Nakiri. It's like super funky shape Nakiri, single bevel. Cutting the daikon, those like slicing, julienning makes it so much easier. Very unique, thick spine, super thin forging. Like this here, just give you a perspective idea, right? Because a lot of people, it's
amazing.
Lots of them attain the thinnest part of his knife is actually right above the bevel right here.
About 3 sheets of paper.
Here. And it goes down to 0.93. 93. 0.9 millimeters. It is just by forging it,
That's crazy.
if not the grinding it, right?
Yeah. Well, I see why he's got to leave that big sort of bead of steel across the top.
Yeah.
To give it that strength, or else you could just fold it in half with your hands.
Right. Yeah, the thinnest part probably 0.
What
Oh,
about
I
you,
found
Nathan?
8.5.
What's your favorite?
I'm honestly pretty excited to get one of these knives from Kenzie. I like like he's doing that Japanese style handle, but it's got kind of a taper down towards the blade. I like that it's got like all the distal taper and everything forged in, and they just look really cool. Like they've got a nice Nishiji finish that's kind of rough. That roasted maple handle is quite beautiful. I did just get one of those Suzuki sickles like yesterday.
Oh,
yeah, I haven't even used it yet, but I've got a lot of like sage and mint and stuff in my garden that needs to get chopped down.
Nice.
So it's gonna be harvesting time pretty soon.
Cool.
Yeah, and dress my baby up like a Grim Reaper maybe for Halloween.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Just measure 4.4 mil thick spine.
Yeah,
and the thinnest part was 0.85.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. How thin is this cucumber?
It can be squashed though. Like that, cucumber is hard to.
0.73.
Oh.
I stopped before I squished it.
Okay.
So
thinner than a cucumber.
So there's something else that happens around this time of year that I think is important to give a mention to before we sign off for the day.
Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween, right around the corner. Get your decorations out. No, back to school. There's a lot of people going back to.
The one I'm really excited about.
Oh, what's this?
So back to school,
back to school, and if we're talking back to school, maybe you're off to college, maybe you're back to cooking school. You know what? We brought in a knife. It's a knife that is almost ubiquitous. You see it in so many places. It's a carbon steel chef's knife. It has an old school European handle on it. If any of you are familiar with the knives we carry, a great knife that we have that's awesome for young folks, people just starting out. You just need a knife that's really sharp and you're not too worried about any other specifications. Tojiro DP is a really fantastic knife for the price. So we're getting this new knife. It's Sakai Takayuki. This is the one. I really want this one. This steel is it's completely carbon steel. It's a single steel, or mono steel sometimes it's called. It's not clad in stainless steel, as you can see. It looks like just a big old European chef's knife, but it's SK4 carbon steel, which means it's going to be super nice and sharp. It's sharpened with a bit of a right-handed bias, which is really difficult to see here. However, that's not making it a single bevel. It could be moved over if you wanted it to, or evened out if you needed it.
Yeah.
However, I don't know exactly the price of this knife, but what I know is for a 330 mil carbon steel Gyuto, it's going to be incredibly affordable.
So yeah, this comes in so many different shapes and sizes, but because they make this size, we were like, this 330 mil or 13-inch blade is the longest that we carry.
Well, and there's so many great sizes and shapes, and there's boning knives, and there's a 210 millimeter slicer that's like a needle, and it's flexible.
And it's got little,
not flexible like bend it right angle, but it's like, man, they're just, to me, I think they would be a fantastic knife for any sort of professional. I think if you wanted to build a kit of knives for specifically for butchery, you'd find it here. And I just think as terms of a budget option to get that carbon steel performance, they're outrageous. They're fantastic.
The Honosuke Maru and very similar. Construction, right?
Yeah, it's so smooth. I really like that. Yeah.
And it's pretty sharpened. It's mono steel, so it can be sharpened from both. You can make it like a left-handed bias as well.
Yeah.
So just how you sharpen it. So yeah, it's really, really. We're kind of excited about it because it's something that I think chef wanted for a very long time, but we haven't been able to kind of accommodate.
Well, I know one of the goals you have is to curate a really great selection of knives, not to be totally biased towards one specific feature or fact or quality or than another. And this was something that was sort of missing from our selection. And we were in Japan. You go to all these different knife shops in Japan. They have 7 different versions of the same kind of knife.
Right.
And I think it has a home in our selection, and it might even have a home in your kit.
Mhm.
If you're a young chef and you want something blazing sharp, this would be a great place to be. Yeah.
Mhm. And we've got, if you are like getting equipped for back to school, we've got a little guide of what to get on our website. So there's just like a link that says back to school. You can check that out. We've got a great video with Mike where you taught us how to build a knife kit last year. I've got one coming out next month about like the best knives for professional chefs. We also, for those of you that aren't going to cooking school but might be going to school, we've got some content like a new blog and a video coming your way about setting up your first apartment. So if you've never had your own kitchen before, like what stuff you should actually spend money on, because money might be a little tight.
Yeah, well, and it's good to start with some good habits, and you know what? You can buy it once and have it for a really long time. Just make sure your roommates know.
Yeah. Or don't know, just hide it in your bedroom.
It was funny. I was talking with a couple of the other ex-chef cooking school employees here at Knifewear, and we all have the same experience when someone brings in a roll of knives and there's a couple of Wusthof or Henkels or Victorinox or whichever, and then they got one Tojiro DP, and you sharpen them all, and then you sharpen that Tojiro DP and you feel the edge and think, God, this thing is good, because it's so sharp, right? And it's not a fancy tool, but I think if I had started with that Tojiro DP versus the Victorinox I started with, it would have been a little bit different, because you never really know how sharp a knife could be.
You know, I had a really awesome Henkels when I started that was like really thin. It was a newer one. I think it was just like stamped out of a really thin piece of steel. And I was blown away by how sharp it was, but I had to sharpen it every single week, minimum, like maybe twice a week. And I think, I just would have had to waste less time sharpening my knives if I had a DP. That Henkels was pretty rad, but and I ended up giving it to a friend who needed a knife. But yeah, I would have spent a lot less time sharpening if I had some harder steel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. We have any more questions there, Nathan?
Yeah, no other questions. Everybody seems like they're just hanging out and listening. Yeah. But if anybody does have any more questions, you got a couple more minutes. Again, Naoto's got a new video. If you want to learn more about the makers we talked about today, Naoto's got a video that came out yesterday about Wakui-san, where he tells the full story, and you can see a little bit of behind the scenes and close-ups of the new knives. We'll have blogs coming out on each of the small makers. The blogs about Kenzie Aaron, Wakui-san, and Suzuki-san are all out on the Knifewear website already. So you can go check that out. You can hit the link in the description for the small makers collection if you want to check out the actual knives made by these guys. Yeah. Stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram too, because we'll have lots of like sexy photos.
So
of these
straight. Yeah, they're really nicely made.
Yeah, I'm impressed with those. I'm excited. Stay tuned for this new collection too from Sakai Takayuki. They'll be coming to stores next week. So yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks everybody.
Cheers. Thanks.
Have a great week.
Well, we'll see you.
Get back to work.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and